Ross O'Brien with the Economist Corporate Network in Hong Kong. We've just wrapped up our annual Asia Innovation Agenda meeting. We were talking about cybersecurity and the implications for Asian-based enterprise managers, both from the security perspective, but also from the strategic perspective. Now, today we discussed quite a bit about the noise factor that the geopolitical angle of cybersecurity brings to the discussion, Andrew. But from some of your data, the state influence in the cybersecurity sector seems relatively overstated.
It does. Statistically speaking, the threat actors are still what they classically have always been. The Eastern European, Russian, Romanian organized crime groups that conduct crime for financial purposes. It's like that old joke about why didn't really set and rob banks, because that's where the money is. So
right.
Certainly those state-affiliated attacks occur, and they exist, but they are still at least statistically overshadowed by what has been classically the data breach cases of years past generated out of, as I said, Eastern Europe, Russia, Romania.
And to a large extent, the main reasons why, or rather, one of the interesting statistics I saw from your presentation was that firms don't actually know that they've been breached until very long after the fact.
Sure. It's like that old joke. I say that it's a joke because it's actually not a joke. It happens all the time. But I'll start an investigation and I'll meet a point of contact. That point of contact will say, Mr. Valentine, what do you need to get started on this case? And I'll say, I need your CISO, I need your CIO, your firewall administrator, your AD manager, whoever runs IDS or IPS here, if I can talk to that person as well. And I understand there's some factor that this may be an insider, so if I can speak to somebody from HR, if I can get those 6 people in a room to discuss this case, that'd be a great place to get started. I'll say to shaking this person's hand, and he'll say, well, thank you very much, here I am, let's talk. And that happens all the time.
Right.
To ask anybody that works in security for any large-scale organization, how many hats do you wear for your job? You'll get an answer of 5 or 6, typically.
Right.
And it's for that reason that you'll find, as I was stating, log analysis to be on the back burner. I don't begrudge anybody for not manually sitting at their SIM tool, aggregating and monitoring logs, because it's just not fun.
Right.
It's difficult work. So of course that's the thing that gets put on the back burner when one person is juggling all these different roles at their job.
And Anthony, you indicated that on top of the issue of too few people or too many hats, there's also a vast amount of proliferation of applications of databases within the organization, so much so that it's very hard for anybody overseeing security to actually get a firm handle on what assets the firm has.
Correct. So I think one of the main problem about the enterprise protecting themselves is first they need to understand where the things they need to protect are.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, the PII, the crown jewel, so-called, of the databases. So is it in the database? Is it sitting in the hard disk? Is it somewhere is transferred on the USB? So all these things, I think the company needs to understand. And so before they actually think about protection, they need to have that kind of visibility, the discovery phase, we call it. So they understand where the data are. And then they will start thinking about how to plan their security around those specific crown jewels of theirs. And then they will constantly be monitoring the policies that are going on to protect those data.
You had mentioned that many of the threats to the organization are not necessarily all that sophisticated either. Something I hadn't realized until you mentioned it, that while the North Korean attack of South Korean banks recently was very high profile, it was actually almost laughably simple.
Yeah, not too sophisticated. A lot of time they are going through a particular vulnerability that they did not patch a particular vulnerability in the system. Either it's the operating system or it's from the applications or even the browser. So sometimes they will just come in as a form of a phishing website or a phishing email. So the attacker tries to use or even social engineering to get in the first place. And then once they are in through the vulnerability, they will escalate privileges and they start to position their attacks with botnets, with the DOS attacks, and coming afterwards. And and then killing the master book record and killing the systems, and then this will hinder the operations of the banks, and you can imagine how much financial loss that is to the banks.
And adding an added dimension to this, Matthew, something that you spent a lot of time talking with us about today, is the fact that there are just that many more points of entry because there are just that many more things out there. You mentioned that we have just passed the point where there are more IP addresses than people on the planet.
Yes, thanks, Ross. I mean, 2010 was the tipping point. So 7 million connected devices, 7 billion, I should say, connected devices, 7 billion people. But things are moving so quickly these days that by 2020, which is, you can throw a stone at 2020, that number will go from 7 billion to 50 billion connected devices. So anything that can be connected will be connected. Anything that will be connected will have intelligence and will be connected to a network, and will really need to be secured in some way.
And with that scale, does that just compound the strategic implications exponentially? In other words, with the scaling of devices, do we get any scaling from the solutions against?
It's very much going to be a learning experience. So it's no longer to place a firewall in the network. It's no longer to place antivirus on a laptop. The network itself is going to have intelligence. It's going to have to be continually learning. It's going to have to anticipate threats. It's going to have to be able to automatically do these things without being taught to. So it's really going to have to continually have that artificial intelligence that allows it to know when an Eastern European IP address is associated with somebody living in Hong Kong, trying to access their bank account. So again, it's a continual learning of the network, artificial intelligence of the network, and it has to evolve.
And you prescribe, you don't necessarily blanketly prescribe outsourcing as a solution, but you're pretty pro outsourcing as a consideration in dealing with these challenges.
I think a lot of it depends on the size of your organization. If you're a small and medium business, then there's no way that, to the point of having 5 different hats, that the owner of a small and medium business probably has 20 different hats.
Right.
There's no way he has the time to take a global perspective of the security threats in the world. Right? So for him, probably the best way is to go to a professional organization and outsource that scale. However, for much larger organizations, I think you'll find a lot more of chief risk officers, chief security officers being more de rigueur. Compliance is looking at the compliance of the network.
Right. Now, Albert, you had referred to it as judicious outsourcing in your discussion. You'd also outlined some other quick wins that an Asian organization can undertake when getting its security infrastructure up to scratch. Well, spend a moment and talk us through a couple of those other quick wins.
I guess the first quick win is I propose the setup of the CSER, the Computer Security Emergency Response Team, which I refer to as a misnomer because the response has this reactive connotation of it, but the right way to tackle an incident, you can't just take a reactive stance. You have to be proactive, and there's got to be a feedback loop as well. And this is the holy grail of what a CSER should be.
Yep.
And it encompass most of the activities that these days the traditional CISO and CIO and CSO should be doing. So that's why a common organization for CSER is also to have involvement from the CISO office, CIO, CSO. Like I said, take everybody under the same umbrellas so that you can have a unified view towards the risk that the organization is facing. Mm-hmm. And of course, in an organization, stovepiping is going to be a problem more often than not. And
Stovepiping, explain that.
Well, stovepiping is that when a specific function gets developed, it's easy to do things their own way without sufficient communications, and it would not be uncommon to have a business unit in a large organization to get audited several times using the same tools all over again. But if you ask the individual risk function why they're doing it, well, they would be using the same tool, but they have different interpretation of the result, and it annoyed the BU to no end, and you got this piecemeal approach, and you have different perspective on the same data. And it would give you conflicting view about the real risk landscape that you are tackling.
Right. So ironically, in an increasingly complex security world, organizations often do themselves no favors by being particularly complex internally as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this morning, and thanks for your insights on the implications of cybersecurity on Asian business.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Ross O'Brien. You've been watching our wrap-up of the Asian Innovation Agenda. Thanks for watching.